plum velvet and tuberose bloom. Cupid finds light in the Corktown gloom. From taxidermy hearts to a perfect click, she's the soul of the city, the master of the trick. But the air turns cold as the silver bell rings, and the Titan walks in with the trouble he brings. Julian Vane, a fortress of glass, buying a heart with the tongue sharp as brass. He wants a merger, a trophy, a win, but Cupid's looking for the soul within. The contract is signed, the clause is the key. In a city of steel, love isn't free. Scream on the line, the shadows grow tall, the Titan is shaking, and death's come to call.
Chapter 1. The Art of the Match. The air in the Lovejoy Matchmaking office always smelled like a specific blend of expensive love and the faint, unmistakable scent of sexy. A heady mix of high-end tuberose, aged bourbon, and the kind of confidence that only comes from knowing exactly how to handle a human heart. Cupid Lovejoy adjusted her fuchsia Prada silk scarf, the color so vibrant it seemed to pulse with a life of its own against the deep, rich mahogany of her skin. She leaned back in her velvet chair, which was the color of a bruised plum, feeling the weight of the gold rings on her fingers. Across from her sat a man who was currently sweating through his polyester blend while trying to explain why his extensive, home-curated collection of vintage taxidermy wasn't a total deal-breaker for a first date. "It's about preservation, Cupid," Arthur Pringle insisted, his fingers trembling slightly as he pushed his thick-rimmed glasses back up the bridge of a nose that was already pink with exertion. "It isn't just about the animals, it's about frozen moments in time. Each piece tells a silent, majestic story of the natural world, captured in a state of eternal grace. I even have a three-legged fox that I've named Barnaby. He has the most soulful glass eyes you've ever seen. Surely a woman of your romantic sensibilities understands the beauty of something that never changes, never leaves, and never talks back." Cupid tapped a gold pen against her chin, the rhythmic click-clack echoing the steady heartbeat of her business. Arthur was a sweet, if slightly eccentric archivist who spent more time with the dead than the living, but he had a heart of pure, albeit dusty, gold. Beside him sat Millicent "Millie" Vance, a woman who had come to Cupid 3 months ago with a list of requirements so specific they bordered on a government security clearance. Millie was a woman of hushed tones and delicate lace, someone who moved through the world as if she were made of spun glass. Her primary mandates had been non-negotiable. Her partner must love quiet spaces, possess a library of at least 500 physical books, and most crucially, cannot be allergic to dust. A requirement that had disqualified 3 hedge fund managers and a professional athlete before Arthur had even walked through the door. "And Millie," Cupid said, her voice dropping into a register like warm honey drizzled over a sharp truth, "how do you feel about stories told through, well, let's say, preserved squirrels?" She watched the woman closely, searching for the telltale flinch that usually ended Arthur's prospects. Instead, Millie's eyes, hidden behind lenses that were equally as thick and earnest as Arthur's, began to twinkle with a genuine, unforced delight. "I find the Victorian tradition of anthropomorphic taxidermy quite charming, actually," she replied, her voice small but certain. "There is something so whimsical about reclaiming the wild for the domestic. In fact, I have a miniature diorama of mice having a tea party, complete with tiny lace doilies, tucked right into my breakfast nook. It's the only thing that keeps the morning silence from feeling too heavy." Cupid felt that familiar, satisfying click in her chest, a physical resonance that told her the job was done. It was the spark. Most people came into her office looking for fireworks, explosive, loud, and ultimately temporary displays of heat. Cupid, however, looked for the way too different. Jagged puzzles finally found a shared edge, locking together so seamlessly that the seam itself disappeared. "I think," Cupid said, closing their thick manila files with a definitive, rhythmic flourish that signaled the end of the consultation, "that the two of you should attend the Natural History Museum's Midnight in the Mezzanine Gala this Friday. It's quiet, the lighting is dim enough for even the most sensitive archivists, and the dust is strictly historical. I'll have the tickets sent to your respective offices by noon tomorrow. And Arthur? Wear that charcoal suit I picked out for you during our style audit. It brings out the deep preservationist in your eyes. As the quirky pair shuffled out of the office, their shoulders practically vibrating with a shared, frantic excitement over the merits of formaldehyde and vintage felt, Cupid exhaled a long, happy breath. This was why she did it. In a city like Detroit, hard-edged, resilient, and beautiful in its complex layers of history and rebirth, finding a soft place for someone to land was more than a career. It was her calling. Her office was a sanctuary perched on the third floor of a meticulously refurbished brick building in Corktown. Outside, the city was humming with its usual chaotic energy, a rhythmic pulse of distant jackhammers, the low growl of passing muscle cars, and the faint brassy notes of a street musician's jazz drifting up from the corner. But inside, Cupid had cultivated a world of romantic optimism, filled with lush greenery, antique furniture, and the silence of a woman who knew exactly who she was. The chime of her door, a delicate, custom-tuned silver bell, interrupted her moment of zen. Except this wasn't the light, hopeful, quirky taxidermist chime. This was a heavy, demanding I pay for the door, the building, and the very air you breathe kind of entrance. The vibration of the door hitting the stopper felt like a territorial claim. In walked Julian Vane. Cupid didn't need to check her calendar to know who he was. The local news checked it for her on a nightly basis. Vane was a real estate magnate whose face was plastered on billboards from the riverfront to Royal Oak, usually accompanied by slogans about building the future, while he leveled the past. He was handsome in a way that felt entirely manufactured, a jawline so sharp it looked like it had been honed on a whetstone, eyes the color of a cold, unforgiving Atlantic, and a bespoke suit that likely cost more than Cupid's first car and her college degree combined. "Miss Lovejoy," he said, his voice a baritone rasp that didn't bother waiting for an invitation to sit. He occupied the plum velvet chair like it was a throne he was in the middle of seizing by force, his presence shrinking the room. "Mr. Vane," Cupid replied, her professional smile firmly in place even as her internal alarm bells began to toll. "To what do I owe the pleasure? I usually handle initial intake through my assistant, though I suspect you aren't a man who finds much joy in waiting in queues with the common folk." "I don't wait," Vane said flatly, his gaze sweeping over her office with a dismissive lack of interest. "I have a deadline. 6 months. To the day." Cupid raised an arched eyebrow, her pen held poised like a needle. "For love? Love isn't one of your construction projects, Julian. You can't just throw more overtime at it or bribe the inspectors to meet a Q3 goal." Vane leaned forward, his arrogance radiating off him like a cheap, heavy cologne, though his actually smelled of expensive sandalwood, cold metallic notes, and an overwhelming amount of ego. "I'm finalizing the acquisition of the Sterling Group. The board is traditional. They value stability and legacy. They want a family man at the helm. A power couple image to soften my sharp edges before the merger is signed at the end of the year. I need a woman who is elegant, unimpeachable, and capable of standing beside me at a highly publicized engagement party by next month. 6 months after that, I expect a wedding. You're looking for a trophy to display in your lobby, not a partner," Cupid said, her voice losing its honeyed warmth and turning into something closer to Flint. "I run a matchmaking service for the soul, Mr. Vane, not a casting agency for corporate theater." "I'm looking for a match that makes sense," Vane countered, his eyes narrowing. "And I'm told you're the best in the Midwest. Find me the woman who fits the profile, the right look, the right pedigree, the right silence, and your fee will be tripled. Fail or refuse me, and I'll make sure the city's influential circles hear that Cupid Lovejoy has lost her touch. I can make your boutique business disappear as easily as a condemned tenement." Before Cupid could offer a retort sharp enough to draw blood, her office door swung open again with a familiar, energetic bang. This time it was Chloe, her best friend, brandishing 2 oversized iced coffees like they were weapons meant for a siege. Chloe was dressed in her field reporter trench coat, her hair a mess of curls and pins. "Cupid, you will not believe the scandal at the city." "Oh," Chloe stopped mid-sentence, her journalistic instincts instantly sharpening to a razor's edge as she spotted Vane. She didn't shrink back from his icy stare. Instead, she shifted into a predatory reporter mode, her eyes scanning Vane from his polished Italian shoes to his perfectly coiffed hair. Mr. Vane, scouting for more historic property to demolish? Or are you just here to see if Cupid can help you buy a soul to replace the one you traded for those condos? Vane stood slowly, smoothing his jacket with a deliberate, insulting grace. Miss Miller, I see your station still hasn't found anything better for you to do than haunt coffee shops and gossip like a schoolgirl. He turned back to Cupid, ignoring Chloe as if she were a piece of furniture. 1 week for the first shortlist, Miss Lovejoy. Don't disappoint me. I find disappointment to be an expensive emotion for everyone involved. He swept out of the office, leaving a vacuum of oppressive silence and the faint scent of sandalwood in his wake. Chloe handed Cupid her coffee, her expression a mix of genuine concern and professional intrigue. Tell me he isn't a client, Cupid. Please tell me you didn't just sign a contract with the devil. That man is a shark with a smile, and my sources say he stepped on every influential toe in Detroit to get that sterling deal through. Cupid took a long, desperate sip of the cold brew, feeling the caffeine hit her system like a shock. He's a client, all right. He wants a perfect match to seal a business deal. He thinks he can buy a fiancé like he buys a city block. That's not a match, Chloe scoffed, leaning heavily against the desk. That's a transaction. Be careful, see. You play with fire, you get burned. You play with Julian Vane, you end up as part of a concrete foundation. He is clearly a complete and utter asshole. I am sure he has to pay most women to even be bothered with him and that awful entitled attitude of his. I know that's right. Chloe laughed, though the humor didn't quite reach her eyes. Then she straightened up, her face becoming uncharacteristically grim. I am being serious, Cupid. Turn him down. Refund whatever retainer he threw at you and walk away. He is nothing but trouble, and that kind of ego always leaves a trail of bodies behind it. Cupid looked at the door where Vane had disappeared, the silver bell still faintly vibrating. She was a hopeless romantic, yes, but she was also a woman of Detroit. She knew a storm when she felt the atmospheric pressure drop. He thinks he's the one holding the contract, Cupid murmured, her eyes fixed on the empty space he had occupied. But he forgot one thing. What's that? Chloe asked, crossing her arms. I'm the one who decides who gets the heart, Cupid said, her voice low and steady. And right now, I'm not sure Julian Vane even has one to give. After Chloe left, still muttering about corporate vampires and the inevitable collapse of the Detroit skyline, Cupid retreated into what she called the vault. It was a climate-controlled room at the back of her office, lined with floor-to-ceiling oak cabinets that housed her physical archives and a sleek, high-end workstation that managed her digital database. While most matchmakers relied on algorithms and swipe-right metrics, Cupid relied on the Lovejoy ledger. It was a system of cross-reference personality traits, generational histories, and, most importantly, the things people didn't say in interviews. She sat at her desk, the glow of the dual monitors casting a cool blue light over her face. She pulled up Julian Vane's public profile. The man was a ghost in the shape of a titan. Born in Indian Village, educated in Switzerland, and currently living in a penthouse that overlooked the ruins of the Packard plant, he was threatening to turn into luxury lofts. There were no scandals, no messy breakups, no public brawls, just a trail of bankrupt competitors and a reputation for being as cold as a Michigan January. Unimpeachable, Cupid whispered, echoing Vane's own word. Her gold pen tapped a frantic rhythm against the desk. He doesn't want a wife. He wants a shield. The threat he'd leveled, to erase her business from the city's social fabric, wasn't just posturing. In Detroit, reputation was the only currency that didn't devalue, and Vane owned the bank. If she failed, the Lovejoy name would be synonymous with incompetence by the time the snow started to stick. She began to filter her candidates. She needed someone who could handle the sandalwood and ego cocktail without choking. Most of her high society bachelorettes were too soft. They wanted the fairy tale, and Vane was more of a cautionary tale. She scrolled past a dozen perfect women, heiresses, surgeons, boutique owners. None of them had the spine. To stand next to Julian Vane at a gala, a woman needed to be made of the same reinforced steel he used for his skyscrapers. Then a file caught her eye. Genevieve Gigi Beaumont. Gigi was Detroit royalty, but the kind that had survived the fires. Her family had once owned half the shipping lanes on the Great Lakes, but Gigi had pivoted the family's waning fortune into a powerhouse nonprofit that specialized in urban restoration. She was elegant, 34, and possessed a stare that could freeze boiling water. She was also currently fighting Vane's latest development project in the city council. Enemies to lovers, Cupid mused, a small mischievous smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Or at least, enemies to a legally binding engagement. Gigi Beaumont was unimpeachable. She had the pedigree to satisfy the Sterling Group's board and the intelligence to see through Vane's bullshit. But would she agree to be the trophy for a man she was currently trying to block from demolishing a historic theater? Cupid leaned back, the velvet of her chair familiar and grounding. She looked at the fuchsia scarf draped over the corner of her desk. She had 1 week to present a shortlist. Most matchmakers would give him 3 names to make him feel like he had a choice. But Cupid knew Vane. Choice wasn't what he wanted. He wanted the answer. She spent the next 4 hours cross-referencing Gigi's psychological profile with Vane's. It was like watching 2 predators circle each other in a digital space. They both valued efficiency. They both hated waste. They both viewed Detroit not as a city, but as a legacy to be shaped. By midnight, the office was silent, the only sound the distant, low thrum of the city's nightlife. Cupid finalized the file. She had 2 other names, a brilliant architect named Elena and a sharp-witted district attorney named Simone. But Gigi was the one. Gigi was the fire that could actually survive the frost of Julian Vane. She closed the laptop, her eyes burning from the screen time. She thought back to Chloe's warning. He is nothing but trouble, and that kind of ego always leaves a trail of bodies behind it. Cupid stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the glittering lights of the Renaissance Center. She had spent her life trying to find the click, that moment of perfect alignment. But as she looked at Gigi's photo on the screen, she didn't feel the click. She felt a shiver. 2 hours later, Cupid found herself standing in the lobby of Vane Tower. The building was a monolith of black glass and brushed steel, a stark contrast to her warm lavender-scented office in Corktown. The security guard didn't ask for her ID. He simply nodded and gestured toward the private elevator. Vane was expecting her. When the doors opened on the 50th floor, the silence was absolute. The office was sprawling, furnished with minimalist pieces that looked more like weapons than furniture. Julian Vane sat behind a desk carved from a single slab of obsidian, the city lights reflecting in the glass wall behind him. "You're late, Miss Lovejoy," Vane said without looking up from his tablet. "I'm thorough, Mr. Vane," Cupid countered, crossing the room with a deliberate grace. She didn't wait for an invitation this time. She sat in the chair opposite him and dropped a slim, leather-bound folder onto the obsidian. "I have your answer. But before we discuss Genevieve Beaumont, we need to discuss my terms." Vane finally looked up, his Atlantic blue eyes narrowing. The fee was already settled. "This isn't about money," Cupid said, her voice steady. "I've spent the last 6 hours looking into your life, Julian. You've built a fortress, but you're living in it alone. If I am going to put my reputation, and Gigi Beaumont's heart, on the line, you have to agree to my Lovejoy clause." Vane leaned back, a mocking smirk playing on his lips. "And what, pray tell, is that?" "You have to actually try," she said. "I don't cast roles, I match souls. If you want this to work, if you want the Sterling Group to believe you're a family man, you have to actually open your heart up to the possibility of finding love. You can't just play the part. You have to let someone in. Otherwise, the power couple image will be as hollow as one of your empty buildings, and they'll see right through it." Vane stared at her for a long, tense minute. The arrogance was still there, but beneath it, Cupid sensed a flicker of something else. Impatience, perhaps, or a deep-seated weariness. "Fine," he snapped. "If it secures the merger, I'll play your little emotional games. Now tell me about." The sharp, jarring ring of his personal cell phone cut him off. It wasn't the standard ringtone. It was a high, piercing chirp. Vane frowned and pulled the phone from his pocket. He didn't recognize the number, but he answered anyway, putting it on speaker as he reached for a pen. "Vane," he said. Immediately, the room was filled with the sound of a voice, distorted, raw, and vibrating with a terrifying level of rage. It wasn't just talking. It was screaming a high-pitched, jagged sound that made the hair on the back of Cupid's neck stand up. "You think you can just take it all?" the voice shrieked, the volume so loud it distorted the phone's speaker. "You think you're untouchable in your glass tower? I'm going to tear it down, Julian. I'm going to watch you bleed out on your own damn marble floors. You're a dead man. Do you hear me? You're already dead." The line went dead with a sickening click. The silence that followed was heavier than the one before. Cupid watched Julian Vane, the man who demolished history for breakfast, the man who had threatened to erase her business with a casual wave of his hand. His face, usually a mask of cold stone, had turned a sickly, ashen gray. His hand, still holding the phone, was visibly trembling.
He wants a merger, a trophy, a win, but Cupid's looking for the soul within. The contract is signed, the clause is the key. In a city of steel, love isn't free. Scream on the line, the shadows grow tall, the titan is shaking, and death's come to call.